you understand, Mr. Ntanzi, because I was having a challenge that when this, but now that you are saying you are going to put it forth to ER for adoption, I implement it as is right now. May you then assist Mr. Daniel with the live streaming, please?
Chair, Gerald is on leave. We have Mapula assisting us with live streaming. Thank you, Chair.
Madam Mapula. May you please just give confirmation if we are live streaming?
Chair, we are live. Mapula cannot
forms to the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee meeting number 173 of the 5th of April 2023, which is held virtually via Microsoft Teams. I would this moment like us members to losing a change with item 9 to follow item 6, noting their interrelatedness, one being a revocation and the other being the operating license to include the new joint owner of this facility now. If that is acceptable, members, may we then for changes from your side? I take it that there are none. With that change, please indicate by show of hands if you approve their document as put forth. Thank you, Madam Simane. Thank you, Mrs. Banda. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. I then support. Let's then proceed to declaration of interest. Please fill in the forms and return them to Madam. Proceed to item 5, which is the decision and reasons for decision on the tariff application by Tex and Petroleum Pty Ltd for East Petroleum for the period 1st March 2023 to 28th February 2026. It's a multi-tariff application. Over to you, Madam Bogo.
Good morning, and colleagues. Ms. Ndlovu is ready to introduce the submission for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. 18.36 cents per litre for the 2020 and 17.46 cents per litre for the 2025-2026 financial year. And then Chair, in similar tariffs of 18.37 cents per litre, 18.36 and 17.46 cents per litre for the 2023 to the 2026 financial year, respectively, Chair. The slight difference, Chair, in the decimal places in the tariff is due to the net working capital calculations, Chair, caused by the trade receivables. And then, Chair, the tariffs calculated are provided on page 8 and 29 of the submission. And then further, Chair, it's worth noting that this facility is a below bulk facility. It is hereby recommended that the PPS approves the tariffs applied for by Texan and approve the decision and reasons for decision document attached as Annex A. Thank you, Chair.
To introduce, I don't know, Madam Bogo, if you've got anything to add.
Nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
By show of hands, if you've got any of those. Thank you. I would then give Mr. Sbanda, followed by Mr. Kumete, the opportunity.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I don't have a specific question relating to this application per se. I have regarding these small facilities. So when I look at the manner in which we regulate the suspending the bulk determination and then that decision stands, and so we have to regulate them. But for me, I think we need to exercise cost-effective resources and time on facilities that are also, for instance, if you look at these applications, and it's not just this one, there's another one on the agenda as well, and others that we've dealt with. So of time, which is about 5 months to 6 months dealing with these applications. We visit them to confirm capacity. We benchmark to determine efficiency and all of that. So we follow the same steps that we do with the larger facilities, and for me, that in a way, the purpose of us arguing that these facilities shouldn't be regulated. But even in the absence of determination, I think we should be exercising some discretion as a regulator to say, is there a way of applications and not spend the same amount of time and the same amount of resources as we do with the so on. But I'm saying, should we be spending the same amount of time and resources as we do with the larger ones? Because I looked at the steps and everything else, it's similar to what we do with the larger facilities, and perhaps we just need to way of dealing with these, so that regulating and they don't have a lot of impact in the economy and so forth and so on. But if we spend the same time, the same amount of time and the same amount of resources, then we're not going to have any justification to say they don't require regulating. That's the third sentence. We mentioned there another licensee, Bergen. I think we wanted to say Tucson. Under recommendations, I think it will assist perhaps just to break down the financial years, the 3 financial years, together with their applicable tariffs, instead of just it's for the period 5 April to 28 February 2026. Maybe we should just break down the financial years and their applicable tariffs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. I hope you have noted the management, because the issue that is being raised as being cost-effective from the part of the regulator. It will be a reduction of the regulatory burden, which then is a matter that I think you should have it included in your bulk determination review, to talk to these matters, citing the very examples that Mr. Sibanda put forth. So I take it that this is a part of general improvement of our regulatory effect, and efficiency in regulating. And then the other two you then have just to respond there to. Mr. Kumete, over to you, sir.
Members, thanks for the opportunity. I've just got a couple of questions, but firstly, can I just notice that this particular submission was actually reloaded, but in reloading it, I lost a lot of previous comments that I'd made on the submission. Can we keep the older version, please? No matter how much problematic it might have been, because some of us may have made our annotations thereon. Anyway, my comments. I was just wondering with the team. I mean, has the analysis been, was 3 cents, 3.03 cents to 18, and extraordinarily high. I'm not sure whether in terms of other, in terms of your benchmarking with other storage facilities, the increases, is it aligned? That's number one. And that a jump from 3 cents, unless the first one perhaps was done differently and didn't go through the same kind of scrutiny as this was for as this particular, that we had that kind of jump. And then I looked at it and said, this is very, very high. Stock turn of 210. tons per annum. It's very, very high. It just kind of raised the question and said, firstly, considering the size of the tank, I assume that it's not a pipeline linked tank tank system. And that it just seems to me that that number, if it could be achieved by a lot of other tanks or anything even remotely close to that, that would be, it just seems to me, I don't know. I'm saying, how do you achieve a stock turn of 210? And if we can, it is used as a benchmark. I think the last question, 20 or page 15 of 29 are not quite clear. So it says in terms of operational capacity, it just says meters. I assume that's meter cubed. Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumete. I will then hand over to Madam Maseti.
10 years at least, if you look at the jump from 3 rands to 18 rands, just to get clarity, is the extent of the 2016 methodology that was adopted, of which methodology was using, and that may have caused this jump, whether maybe after that methodology was abandoned, whether the figures were then adjusted backwards so that at least we don't see these sort of notional values that may be part of this RAB value that we see and cause a jump in the tariff. So that's the first thing. And then the second one relates to paragraphs 21. Just to reconcile two statements, because in one, I think it will be line 3 of paragraph 21 of, I'm not sure whether it's ending June or March 2023. And we are stating there inside the brackets that such volumes are not known or were not known at the time of preparing this application 2023. Yet we said we do not know, but we are saying, how do we use actual volumes of 2023? Yet we're saying that we still do not know. We just have for the last 5 months of the financial year, 2022-2023 financial year. So how did we use that, the actual volumes, when we did not know them? So we may need, because I read it again and I still couldn't understand what we are trying to say there, if those two statements can be reconciled. The last point, Chairperson, relates to paragraph 24. I think on paragraph 24, we must state exactly the essence of what we're trying to say there, in respect of the analysis of efficiency. I mean, anyone from from a regulator, we need to clarify the kind of the efficiency standards that we are referring to. Are we talking about your normal, which a regulator will be one thing that it considers when it takes regulatory decisions? Certain specific efficiencies, such as productive efficiencies, if you're now talking about your capacity utilization and volumes, is it what you are trying to deal with, kind of efficiency that we're talking about there? That efficiency standard that we applied and analyzed, what efficiency and in what way, how does it fit there? Or we want to be specific in terms.
Thank you, Chairperson. See what we can do with the comment made by Mr. Sibanda, the first comment he made. And then, yes, that is an error.
With regard to the comment, I've already given guidance in terms of the incorporation thereof in the review of the detailed parts. Mr. Untit will come in and assist in that.
Before, that shouldn't have been bagging, but taxing petroleum. And the recommendations, he said that we needed to be specific to the tariffs approved for each. Mr. Gumedi's questions and methodologies used. We'll note that in 2015, there was a methodology that was used that worked on sort of fictitious figures that were based on some study that was conducted at DMRE. So now in this determination, we're using the actual costs incurred in the assets, the OPEX, and also actual volumes. So this is why we could not even conduct that comparison and also talk to that huge increase in used, which are totally different. And then to the expression of volumes, it is indeed cubic. Correct that in the methodology. And sorry, I just have paragraph 10 that I've touched on all the comments made by Mr. Gumede. And with regards to the actual tariffs, actual volumes that we used, I'm on Ms. Masete's questions, her second question, because the first one dealt with the different methodologies, and the effect was that the units or the data used was completely different. Hence, we see now with the use of the actual data pair. So that the driver there is the different methodologies used in determining tariffs. And then, Chair, I see Mr.
Just hold on there. If you can just go to Mr. Maseti, because the question that was posed was to say, why couldn't we return to the what was used prior to using the notional values? But Mr. Maseti come in and explain it.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I think you touched on it, because remember, I know that there was a new methodology, hence I brought it into that question, that maybe when we see these figures, it could be because of that methodology that was approved and applied in 2016, 15-16. So argument has been made because the values that affected the RAB were actually overstated. And even capacity that was there was not the operational capacity. They would use the closing balance of the RAB prior to the implementation of that methodology. I'm asking if those costs were verified and adjustments made. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If you may just please explain that clearly, and also to talk to the stock 10 question that was raised by Mr. Kumete, the challenge that I'm heavy down and not increase, and therefore the thanks. You may ask your colleagues to also assist you in this in the EM. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chair. So the applicant, like with regards to this stock 10 question, the applicant indicated that it is able to actually receive and dispatch stock within 24 hours. Cited for that was that it services service stations and farmers. So there's a high rate of stock 10. So we queried on this, and that was the response we got. And otherwise, the facility is not linked, or it's not fed via pipeline. Comparison of or assess the closing asset base before use of the methodology that was approved that was used in 2015, because this this applicant actually started filing that was approved in 2015 were the first tariffs for this facility. So we weren't able to do that comparison of the closing asset base, and also, Chair, in 2015, but then they are still lower than the actual values in this case. But you've seen with other with tariffs, without a tariff determination for other facilities, the asset base operating costs and maintenance costs were actually much higher. But then for this facility, it is a different case.
Okay, I note that if maybe Mr. Untit can also come in to respond to the issue that is related to stock 10 as well as the facility.
I'm struggling with unmuting. Thanks, Chairperson, for the opportunity again. I'm trying not to comment as I read the Act, it says in the manner prescribed by regulation, and I therefore have my serious reservations in terms of how we go about with the changes. But the one thing that bothers me, Chair, is a comment that was made by Ms. Boko around the acquisition. So, for instance, in terms of the asset values. But from where I'm sitting, let's do that our methodologies are such that, especially this particular one, we're looking at about asset values, that those are actually are depreciated over the life of the asset, which therefore, even if there is a change in hand, a change in the ownership of those assets, it shouldn't really affect the value of the assets, at least from the regulatory point of view, that even if there is a goodwill that's paid in terms of those assets, the value of the assets are what they are. It's what they are in the original books, not in the changed, not when they change hands and there is additional value that is attached to those assets. I don't know. I'm just trying to get an understanding of that comment. Does that mean assets are sold from one owner to the other? Change the values of those assets, or do we keep the original asset values that we may have had on our books? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Komete. Maybe before you respond, Madam Boko, you can just, whilst you are collecting your thoughts, positive using inflate what we had as inflated figures then. I would like Mr. Untit just to, because I want us to also to draw towards the close of this item.
Yeah, good morning, Chair and members. It's definitely not pipeline connected. However, it is very close by. It literally, I was trying to get a picture, I may still post it later. It's literally down the road, the way they supply their customers. In terms of the bulk, it definitely was one in the discussion document, even before the decision, Chair and members. One of the key reasons was this, regulatory burden, and maybe differentiating between the major facility and then the empirical evidence that the Department of Energy wants from us. So we will have another workshop in the next weeks, and then I'll make sure that be
note the latter comments.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So, in terms of our methodology, Chair, the trended original cost for estimating the PPE, the value of the PPE. So, in essence, this looks at the original cost of acquiring assets at first acquisitions. Our methodology also provides for instances where the original cost is data is not available, wherein the licensees may then conduct an evaluation, but then that evaluation. But in this case, as we show on P99, which is in the actual decision and reasons for decision document, the license, this is under PPE, which is property, plant, vehicles, and equipment, paragraph 17, 18, 9, used its original cost of assets here. So there is, in our assessment, no room for inflating these assets. Otherwise, if this was basic cost, which would have been comfort that the original cost of assets was used here, despite it being still higher than the notional values that were prescribed in the previous methodology, being version 3 of the standard cost incorporated in that methodology. So, Chairperson, the original cost. Oh, so Chair, these assets don't change hands. This facility was licensed to Texan from no. So, yeah, Chair. I'm just checking, Chairperson, Ms.
Paragraph 22 volumes.
Oh yes. So what we did, Chairperson, because the actual volumes for financial years, find it, Chairperson. So the comparison is based on the 2 volumes, then coming to the projected volumes for the period under review. Thank you.
24, in terms of the efficiency standard, analyze whether you're talking of capacity efficiency, this is other words.
Of the facility, the tank, in terms of capacity utilization. So that's the efficiencies. It's not the cost efficiency, which we only do when we assessing or analyzing clawback, where we look at the cent per litre, and if there is some efficiencies, we reimburse the licensee with 25%. No.
Or optimal utilization with operations, which are not necessarily incorporated, which then when you are doing the, is my understanding right in terms of us mainly dealing with capacity efficiencies? Utilization efficiencies.
That's correct, Chair. Your understanding is correct.
Okay, thank you. Those responses, can we then move to have Madam Masetti?
Chairperson, it's not to delay, but just to say maybe then, because that statement is quite empty, maybe then we can just enhance that paragraph 24, because all that we say in this and this, but we're not saying what then happened. What does it mean when you do it between this and this? What then happens? So that enhancement, like you say, in terms of the cost and all that. So that's what then we need to complete that statement.
Thanks, Madam Masetti. I think that enhancement will related to tariff applications. Also taking directly from the the papers that were written in amending the methodology. It's going to be important to do that, Madam Boko, and not just talk loosely efficiency, and how other terms of seeking to have an efficient licensee or a licensee that operates efficiently, so that
the question I'm asking myself is that is it possible? I mean, it's not something for answer now, but is it possible for us to incorporate something like this in terms of a target or a benchmark stop turn? Have to be 210 turns, but even if it's 10, 20. In us, when we are licensing, when we tank that's being applied for compared with any of the tanks around, that before we actually approve a license, that, because I mean that for me would be I'm still intrigued by it, especially in terms of proximity to these pipeline fed tanks in Wagyu, and it to be useful to have seen a benchmarking, sort of to have seen a comparison between and those tanks that are which are owned by. I'm just asking in my head, is it possible to use that somehow in terms of our licensing, either as a target benchmark, a target or a benchmark, or some kind of a? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumet. I think this is a valuable input when one considers that we have on the methodology also and got approval for the transitioning that needs to fully implement that and have the understanding and make sure that it is driving the right behaviors and it is fair and just and meeting it for operate this aspect in it as, and also reflect on thereon when we do the 6-monthly report on the transitioning of the methodology. The PPS is requested to approve 37 cents per litre, 18.36 cents per litre, and 17.54 by Texan for the period 5 April 2023 to 28 February 2026. These are the respective years, financial years of Texan, and as well as the decision and reasons for decision document, which is attached to as annexure. I also support item 6. Item 6 is the BP Southern Africa Pty Limited's application.
Thank you, Chair. These, Ms. Munyabodi, will be introducing it within the the less than 3 minutes allocated. Recognize them, but Ms. Monyebodi, the key features of this application.
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, Chairperson and the colleagues. By BP was done in terms of Section 24, subsection 1C, which allows NERSA to consider revoking a license if another person is willing and able to assume the rights and over its period. And this is reflected in Table 1 of the facility, including the capacities, the products stored, and the operational arrangement. Key issues that we considered, which are outlined for the revocation, where we have basically highlighted the relevant sections applicable to reasons why this license has to be revoked and a new license applied there. Secondly, we have also looked at whether there would be any concerns related to environmental liability to the facility, but found that the sale of property agreement sufficiently addressed any of the potential as a result of historical events prior to the new owners taking over the facility. On the market assessment, our view, Chair, is that since this do not anticipate any negative disruption or impact to the market as a whole, but we have also attached for reference the competition tribunal reasons for decision document on the merger between BP and SFF for this. Suppose this is more applicable for the next item, but we also did reference it here as well, just for accommodation as stipulated in paragraph 26A is for the PPS to approve the revocation of the license issued to BP for this Montague Gardens storage facility. Thank you.
Very much, Madam Monyebodi. I would then questions, comments, or provide guidance. I note the hand from Madam Massetti. Seems to be the only hand. Madam Massetti, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to so that we can understand whether indeed there is a change in ownership here, especially because of the land that has been acquired control here. That BP now no longer controls the facility. So I wanted to check if that acquisition led to a change in control, but also it will assist us in then deal. That for me is of land. Just the update. I know that this is the first the allowance that is made for decommissioning in the tariffs, that it is up to date so that when they take over, we don't come across the same problems that we have seen with the other licensees, where they come back to us and say the money is not sufficient. And we had to spend time last year in one of the licensees' requests. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Massetti. Madam Monyebodi, may you please respond?
Chair. So we can confirm that the change of ownership is specific to just this facility and the property of this facility operations. So even in the skills transfer, and eventually they will have a point where SFF can operate the facility as well. But as now in the agreement, BP continues to operate the facility, but in terms of contract 50 type of agreement. Perhaps I should, Chair, if I may, hand it over to the Tariffs Department. I am aware that the facility does not have a provision for land rehab as it stands. The PPT colleagues can further license application, which is still at a incompleteness kind of stage. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that. They will respond, but I think it's also important to spell it a passive shareholder. So if you can just stipulate that very clearly in terms of enhancing the submission.
Had no physical funds actually claimed from previous via tariffs for financial provision for land rehabilitation. So we do not have to SFF or the JV currently. But then we are working, so the SFF provision will also have to cater for this.
But I just want to check if we are satisfied of this facility.
We have guided as such. We met with SFF a few weeks back. We have guided as such. Unfortunately, the tariff application is still not adequate at the point for us to say that we are satisfied. But then we had.
With that, then noting those responses, members, I would like us then to go to the recommendation. It is recommended that the PPS license issued to PPSA for the operation of a petroleum storage facility in Montague Gardens, Western Cape Province, in 24 subsection 1C of the petroleum pipe, and to also approve the decision and reasons for decision document, which is attached as Annexure A. By show of hands, this then concludes item 6, which Fuel Fund Association facility in BP Road, Montague Gardens, Milnerton in Cape Town, Western Cape Province. Over to you, Madam Boko. Sorry, Madam Nyebadi or Mr. Unti.
The now revoked Montague Gardens storage facility. The application was made jointly by BP and the state-owned SFF. And the parties are jointly applying for a capacity of just over 86,000 cubic meters jet fuel and eliminating paraffin as well. The facility received product from the Astron facilities in Cape Town, from the Cape Town Harbour, and the product from the facility will mostly be dispatched via road. However, there is also a provision to use rail tankers as well when the need arises. In the processing of the application, Chair, we did not receive any written comments or objections towards the application by the closing date of 17 February. We considered in our analysis, which ran from page 16 to 20. We looked at the capability of the public partnership will also be viewed in a positive light, in that while BP will continue to be the mandated operator of the facility, it is likely that there will be skills transferred both ways. For the financial ability, strong balance sheet, and so we concluded that the financial. On the market assessment, we limited our scope to the Western Cape Province and comparatively found that this facility is one of the 4 biggest for refined product, strategic fit in terms of security of supply of refined product, and basically concluded that this facility is still very much critical for the supply of the province and perhaps also enabling third party. Just like we mentioned in the previous one, it's also important to note that the measure is approved by the competition tribunal, and the view was that the measure for this facility as for decision is unlikely to substantially prevent or lessen competition in the market, and that it was concerns. And finally, we did a preliminary prudency assessment where we looked at the historical facility capacity turnovers, which shows that there is adequate utilization of the available capacity of cost. We just said this because there is a tariff application underway, tariff department, the reasonableness thereof, which would be concluded as part of that process. For the PPS as detailed in page 8, paragraph 15, is that the application by BP and SFF for a license to operate a petroleum storage facility with that combined capacity in Montague Gardens be approved, and that the reasons for decision.
Thank you, Madam Nyebadi. Members, any questions, comments, or guidance? I see no hands.
And maybe it's one of those where one should have declared it's not pecuniary interest, but the fact that as the previous chairperson of Petro say, I've actually dealt with this. Simply, it actually formulate the question this way. Firstly, I think Ms. Newbody did mention the stock turns. I couldn't quite find it. Maybe I just didn't read it properly, but I couldn't quite find the number of stock turns that this facility is currently doing or was doing last year. which for me, I think just raised the viability of the actual financial viability of this facility. Whether we satisfied ourselves that this facility indeed is financially viable, especially post the introduction of the and maybe just ourselves satisfied ourselves why one of the core part of Montague Gardens facility associated with the acquisition of this will render this facility to be financially viable. I'm not sure, did we actually satisfy ourselves with that? The projected stock turn is expected to be, especially considering whatever that's all of the happenings around Cape Town, including what's happening with Astron refineries and things like that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kumede. I see the only hand. Then may please
may start. I've asked the team on the WhatsApp if they can just look at the volume reports, because maybe that's a omission that we've got in terms of that. So I don't want to guess. But as an import type facility, these stock turns historically is replenished every 3 weeks. So expect it will be a very low one, but we'll give you that feedback and see if we have having done the analysis, permission in terms of the emergency to do so, to relieve it while the refinery was down. So in terms of the need for the facility, also paraffin or IP, which many BEs wants to import, the expectation is that the use of this facility will increase by third parties. And then I think it is confidentially marked in the document, but for its own volumes to supply its market, but it will also open the market, assist in parallel now quickly on the volume turns, but Sabalo, I'm not sure in terms of the question about the white fuel specifically, which this facility is capable of storing, is definitely why it is important.
Considered the strength of the acquiring firm being SFF. So the first part was to consider financial ability to acquire the 50% portion in BP. That was satisfied, and in the financial statements of SFF for the period of 2022, stating how the funds will be acquired for the acquisition. Further to that, in terms of the financial viability of the acquisition, SFF mentioned that this facility will assist in terms of diversified revenue income, especially for ESCOM volumes. Also assist in terms of market penetration. That's the second point. Consider growth. I'm not sure if my colleagues are able to assist on the current volumes being turned at the BP facility, but in terms of financial abilities and viabilities of the acquiring firm, we have satisfied ourselves. Thank you, Chair.
Satisfied with the responses?
Chairperson, I am satisfied with may have analyzed it. However, I think if we look at every of these projects on their own, and considering, for instance, a number of tanks that are old tanks, and also considering the future that might be happening. You see, Chairperson, my of this is that as the licensing authority, do we actually put ourselves, or rather even assist in advising even people that are actually acquiring these things? For instance, let's just take Durban. That we know that as these are shutting down, we've got tanks at these refineries that were traditionally used as blending tanks and things like that. That sometimes when some of these tanks when tanks outside of these facilities that become available for acquisition by other parties, other than the people that own the actual supply chain, do we actually add value by doing a proper assessment and advising properly? That simply says, in the event, for instance, that the Astron refinery, God forbid, that it goes it goes the route of the engine refinery. There's going to be substantial, and that is pipeline fed. It's got all of the correct linkages. It is very likely that it will probably be the one primary route in terms of delivery of product for Astron and also for third parties, with stock turns much higher than this 1 and 1.5 that has been indicated on the chat. To what extent are we considering that, and therefore maybe even exposing, or themselves being exposed, allowing them to be exposed to the future non-viability of some of these tanks? We know there are lots of tanks, although they may be crude, but there are lots of tanks that are running around the mill, which are there in Milnerton Airport. So that is my concern, Chairperson. But nonetheless, if we are satisfied this facility is viable, and that the tariff that's going to emerge from that would be a sound enough tariff for the continual use of this by third parties, then I'm okay. But I'm not too sure I'm convinced, Chairperson. Especially, I will leave it at that, Chair.
In the industry, I think these are matters that the team on other projects is seized with, and Madam Twain, your team, you take this to heart and be able to, when we are looking how the industry is expected to look like in the forthcoming years, and how then we need to also change our or make adjustment in our framework to be able to ensure that it remains viable. Before I move into the recommendation, I see Madam Semane's hand up.
Maybe based on the proposal that Mr. Gumede has made, I think I would regulate it to come into the commercial arrangements of Cape, or we do some kind of scenario planning going forward. But where it relates to actual parties, licenses, I don't think we should get too involved on that, especially to an extent of advising them on the prospects of them succeeding or failing in the market. I think anyone who's putting money in a business venture, they owe it to themselves to do that kind of diligence. And sometimes the banks have their own people doing that, or it's up to you, each and every industry who are doing that kind of work. So for my son, do it just as a generic out that part. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Semane. I think for me the main issue is the balance that should be maintained, and also for all of us, the sustainability of the venture, because of the overestimation on the part of the owners or the new owners. But that will also in Cape Town, Western Cape Province. 2 is the decision and reasons for the decision document. Attached as Annexure A, and lastly, the license conditions, which are attached as Annexure 1 of the decision and reasons for Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Gumede. I also support. This then concludes item 9. We're going back to item 7.
The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS members to note and approve the publishing of the updated tariff booklet on the NESA website. In the 2022-23 paragraph 6 and highlighted in yellow in Annexure A. At the PPS meeting of 4 May 20, members requested the team to include in the submission the process to be followed for compliance enforcement. The process is prescribed in the Petroleum Pipelines Regulation Operational Procedure for Compliance and Monitoring and Enforcement, and is summarized on paragraph 16 to 17. It is worth noting the improved level of compliance as depicted in Figure 1.
With no hands, I take it that members are happy with what has been put forth before them. I will then move to the recommendation, which is a recommendation for the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee to note the updated tariff booklet and to approve the publication of the updated tariff booklet on the NERSA website. The booklet is attached as Annexure A. By show of hands, members. Thank you, Mr. Kumete. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Simane. December 2025. Over to you, Madam Bogo and Madam Sbak.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning, members and colleagues. This is a 3-year tariff application by Oryx for its petroleum storage facility in Chemdo, Gauteng Province. Oryx facility consists of NESA with the operational capacity highlighted on table. Oryx applied for tariffs of 2.31 cents per litre for the 2023 financial year, 2.15 cents per litre for the 2024 financial year, and 1.81 cents per litre for the 2025. The reason of the tariffs calculated by NESA and Oryx are shown on Table 7, page 10, whereby NESA has arrived at a similar tariff for 2023 and a slight percentage difference tariffs for 2024 and 2025 financial years. Analysis outcome for allowable revenue calculations are shown from page 6 to 7. It is therefore recommended that the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee approve the tariffs applied for by Oryx for its petroleum storage in Chemdo, and also approve the decision and reason for decision document attached hereto as Annexure A. Thank you.
Questions, make comments or give guidance on over to members by show of hands. I note that there are no hands, and then that takes me to the recommendation 11 of 33. It is recommended that the cents per litre for the 2024 financial year and 1.81 cents per litre for the 2025 financial year for Oryx storage facility located in Chamdo, Gauteng Province for the period 1 January. Mrs. Banda, Madam Simane, Mr. Kumete, I also support. This then concludes item 8. We have dealt with item 9,